Good morning, faculty. My name is J.R. Van Slyke, and I'm the president of the Association for Higher Education, our faculty union here at Walla Walla Community College. Yesterday afternoon, I had the chance to meet with President Van Osdol and Sherry Hartford, our Human Resources Director, and we put the finishing touches on a negotiated agreement regarding the distribution of turnover savings. And the purpose of this screencast is to just briefly explain what we agreed to, and we're happy. I think that this is grounds for joy. Hopefully this agreement will place some some money in the pockets of some deserving faculty in time for this holiday season. I'm led to believe that this will actually be in your December 23rd paycheck. So how about that? And this is an agreement between the Association for Higher Education and the administration here at Walla Walla Community College. And we're encouraged and pleased by the agreement we've reached, and we think it will be a nice start toward improving some salary issues that we have experienced here at the college over the past several years. And to that effect, let's talk a little bit about the history. So those of you who've been around, who have been faculty members at Walla Walla Community College, if you've been here 10 years or more, you've noted that over the past 7 or 8 years, essentially since we negotiated and agreed to our most recent salary schedule, some changes have happened in the way of legislative funding in our state. Unfortunately, our present salary schedule is highly reliant upon things like cost of living adjustments and legislative support for increments. And ever since we signed the salary schedule, both COLAs and legislatively supported increments have essentially ceased to take place. So this has created some hardship. You'll note that our increments are not very large. And so when our not very large increments are only funded irregularly at best, it doesn't add up for a whole lot for our salary growth and our salary movement. So that's a concern that we have that we'll take forward, but we won't get too bogged down in that for our purposes right now. I think it's fair to say that the problems posed by our present salary schedule have made it difficult for the administration to focus on one of its goals, which is recruiting the most competitive faculty that our institution can attract. Of course, when there aren't a whole lot of funds for salaries, that makes it difficult. If our salaries aren't as competitive as other institutions, that makes it difficult. And unfortunately, as a result of that, there has become something of a double standard. The administration, in its attempt to recruit the most competitive faculty available, it has desired to increase the starting salaries for faculty at Walla Walla Community College. This, of course, is well and good, although it has come with a, I think, unintended consequence, and that is that there have been regular instances over the past 5 to 7 years where new people who are coming from outside of Walla Walla Community College and are being placed on our salary schedule, their experience in the field as instructors or as people who practice, in the case of professional technical, who practice within an industry outside of the college, their experience outside of the college is actually counted as more than the experience of their counterparts within the college. And this has created a double standard that has been rather frustrating and has had some negative impacts upon faculty morale. So part of our agreement that I'm talking about is an attempt to deal with this double standard. And for AHE, for the association, one of our priorities has been the retention, so keeping the good faculty, the competitive world-class faculty that we have here. And so recruitment versus retention, unfortunately our present salary schedule at times pits those two legitimate objectives against each other. So going forward, we'll hopefully have a salary schedule that doesn't place those two objectives in competition with one another. And it's also worth noting that in the background, by comparison, Walla Walla Community College still lags considerably behind its counterparts throughout the state. We're in the bottom quartile by average salary. This is a concern that both the association and the administration have acknowledged, and hopefully we'll be able to address in the months and years to come. And it's worth noting that we are in a negotiation season right now, so it's possible that some changes could be happening sooner rather than later. So the proposed turnover, so the association, for those of you who don't know, one of the only ways that we have been able to increase salaries or increase faculty pay over the past 7 or 8 years is through something known as turnover savings. In the absence of cost of living adjustments or COLAs from the state legislature, in the absence of legislature-funded increments, turnover savings have been the only monies available to both the association and the administration in terms of dealing with faculty salaries. And turnover savings are essentially that margin. They're that difference between the amount of money that was paid to faculty who have retired versus what is being paid to the new faculty that replaced those retired faculty. So this incidentally only happens when an outgoing faculty member is replaced by a new faculty member. That doesn't always happen. It's something we hope will happen every time, but it doesn't always happen. That margin is the turnover savings. And for example, this past year, from last academic year to this academic year, there were $54,000 or so in that margin between what we were paying outgoing faculty and what we are now paying incoming faculty. If you add that with the $4,500 or so that was carried over from the last, left over from the last turnover savings, that gives us almost $59,000 to deal with. Now an increment, the amount of money that we pay for things like a faculty member who reaches a PIU threshold, you'll bear in mind every 15 PIUs under our contract, a faculty member is paid increment for their PIUs if that funding is available. Likewise, a seniority increment for a year of service to the college. If funding exists and it's negotiated, an increment can be paid for seniority. So these each cost, when benefits are factored in, $350 or so. So if you take that $59,000 of turnover savings and you divide it by 350, there is enough room, I forget what the total number of increments that would fund, but it was enough to pay a seniority increment to all faculty, enough to pay PIU increments to those faculty who had earned them, and then it left almost $18,000 as a remainder. So there we have it. We proposed, and by we I mean the Association for Higher Education, with the understanding that we had this $59,000, we proposed funding a seniority increment for every faculty member who worked last academic year. And then we proposed paying a PIU increment to all faculty members who had reached a PIU threshold. And then that left about $18,000 remaining. We wanted to use that to pay what we were referring to as equity increments, and I'll explain more about those in just a moment. That was the proposal that we made to the administration. So a few weeks ago when we met with the administration, it was actually over Thanksgiving holiday break, they countered with some additional funds, which was a very pleasant surprise to all at the table, of almost $30,000. And what they proposed was fund the increments as we had put forth for the seniority and the PIUs, but then they wanted to add $29,000 to the remaining $18,000 for a total of $46,817 for the purposes of replacing, meaning placing once again on the salary schedule, those specific faculty members, of which there are 33, who at the present moment have fallen behind in terms of their equity and fair placement. And what that means is people who, you can think of it, faculty who would be victims of that double standard, meaning if a new faculty member started tomorrow would actually place on the salary schedule higher than the existing faculty member, even if that existing faculty member had the same amount of experience. So we've called these retention equity increments, and that was proposed with the additional resources. There will be $29,000 in contingency funds added to the $18,000 left over from turnover savings to fund these 33 replacements. This diagram ought to show you just briefly, kind of in this second, or this row here, this column here, it shows people who would be where they are presently, how many people are in those steps, and then it shows how this would change that. So a number of people would be moving up, say, to 4A. 6 faculty would move up to 4A. 10 would move up to 5A. If you do the math here, you'll note that the number of placements in this plus column equals the same as in the minus. So it shows a little bit that movement. And as a result, at this moment in time, there will not be a double standard. It doesn't mean it couldn't resurface later, but at this moment it sort of makes everyone whole, and that's grounds for encouragement. It's worth noting the way this will work is that the retention increments, so those increments awarded to the 33 faculty members that were below, that were sort of affected by this double standard, those will be awarded first, and this is good news because it means that after you are replaced on the salary schedule, then your other increments will be added. So if you earned a PIU increment, and then most everyone, unless you started this year, will earn a seniority increment as well. So whatever retention increments you've earned, you will then have a PIU and seniority increment added if that applies to your situation. There's an example here that I won't read through, but you can explain that. And I guess it's only fair that I give credit to Ruth Russo, President-elect of the Association for Higher Education. She is the brains behind this PowerPoint. She put this together, so I'm grateful to her for her work on that behalf. And that is her example to sort of help make this as plain as possible. Okay, so where are we? Well, this agreement is not a permanent fix. Again, the salary schedule is still a concern for both the administration and the association, and so hopefully that will be getting some attention as we move through the negotiations process this winter. And you know, we still have a group of people who are missing from this discussion, and that is adjunct faculty. And our adjunct faculty are absolutely integral to the work we're able to accomplish as an institution. And so we do want to definitely keep them in our thoughts and be working on ways to recognize the critical role that they play at our institution, and recognize that in a way that also adds and rewards them, compensates them more appropriately. And then the good news here, of course, is that we now have a more uniform standard for the time being, and this also brings, and again, thanks to the administration, it brings $30,000 in new funds to the table, which the turnover savings would not have been enough to accomplish. So lots to, I think, be pleased with here. You know, this is $90,000 or so that's being brought and distributed for the purpose of salaries. We're still behind many of our counterparts throughout the state, but this is a step in the right direction, and administration and the association are together on quite a bit of our thinking surrounding these issues of salary. So in closing, thanks for all you do. Enjoy your break. We're excited about some of the momentum. I think I can join President Van Osdol and his administrative team and saying let's hope for more positive developments in the year to come. All right. Happy holidays.